Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with another lovely indie author, Katerina. Thank you so much for joining me. Do you want to say something about yourself?
Um, I'm just a writer on the internet.
That's it.
I I don't there's not much to me. I'm a barista by day, a writer by night. I just kind of exist in the world. I'm just trying to make it through just like everyone else.
Nice. Well, I for anyone out there, I did put Katerina's Amazon author page in the description. If this book sounds interesting and you guys want to check out her work, then you guys can just easy click and be right brought to her work. Because I've actually read her series, her current series of what's out so far, and I loved it. It became a quick favorite of mine, so it was amazing. I absolutely loved it. So I definitely recommend people to check it out.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Like it actually it makes my heart so happy.
Well, I bet because your series was actually really good. Like I thought I was going to like it because witches are like my thing. Like witches are probably one of my favorite things. Like I'm all about witches and stuff. So because your book was about witches, I was like, oh, there's no chance I'm not gonna like it. I just didn't realize how much I was actually gonna love it.
Like that has always been one of my main things. Like I'm like, oh well, I like my characters and I like my book, but like, will anybody else really do it? And then like, just hearing you like love it so much, it makes me so happy.
Yeah, well, I do love it, and I hope more people check out your book, and that this interview will help you get a few sales, because you definitely deserve it.
Hopefully.
Because I know, I don't know if these interviews have helped every person so far, but I do know at least the first person that I interviewed actually told me that after the like just very shortly after the interview, she said that she already has a new sale and few new followers. So
That would be so cool. Like even if I could just get one, that'd be awesome. I don't think I've had a sale since like February. And now it's June, the end of June. So I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. Any sale would really help.
well, you would get a new sale if you publish book 3 because I would probably buy it as soon as I could.
It's in the process. That's what I'm gonna be talking about is book three. It's being
Awesome.
written. Trying to finish it.
So you want to get into the questions?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to apologize first off though, but if I'm looking down, I do have my little script and my family's here at home. So if you hear any background noise, that's my family.
That's totally fine. My family's here too, so you might hear noise as well. And I also have to look down because I have all the questions on my phone. Okay, question 1. What's your WIP about? If it's a sequel, that you can talk about the overall story, including previous books.
So my whip is the third book in the series. It's called Remission. The series is called Ritual of the Court. Obviously being book three, it's wrapping up all the loose ends and tying off all the main parts of the plot that kind of carried throughout both books. It's coming to a finish, while simultaneously setting the stage for some sequels and prequels and a future trilogy like in the future, like years down the line. Is so it's setting the stage while finishing up the main series, I guess you could say. But it's a lot of tying off knots and then leaving things hanging in other spots. So just in case like I do go back and I write the trilogy, because I'm still kind of the one that's in the future. I'm still kind of like, maybe I'll do it, maybe I'm not. But if I want to write it, I want to make sure that the starting point is there for it.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to incorporate all that stuff and making sure it's cohesive. Like I said, I am still in the process of writing it. About like maybe 75% way there. I should finish it by the end of the year and it should be out by next year. But in the meantime, obviously, I do have the first two books out, but the entire premise of the series is basically survival. Magical survival, but survival nonetheless. Yeah, Malediction, which follows Scarlet, and it kind of, she is a witch, and that's who she is at her core. She's openly embraced all this uh, magicalness inside of her. But in her book, it kind of talks about the survival of her mom's hometown, who is run by her uncle, who is a very narcissistic, um, overzealous priest who, is not a big fan of her or her mom, which is his little sister. And with the help of Elijah, who was a childhood friend or a childhood acquaintance turned best friend, like, she starts to come to terms about things that happened within her family, and then like her ancestors, and then like trying to put more things into perspective, well, trying to like battle this big bad that she accidentally summoned, not meaning to. And then obviously Cascade follows is book two, and it follows her brother, who is human at his core. And so he has to learn to be a witch and love being a witch because of the gift that he was given at birth. He's a seer that can see past, present, and future. And he's born with visions, and eventually as he power grows, he's able to like get stronger and get visions through meditative states. But you know he has to come to terms with being magic and dealing with Thomas, who is trying to feed him lies and being manipulated while going through just stuff of his own, which is like he goes through a bi awakening. So he lived his entire life thinking, oh, I'm gay, totally only having relationships with guys and having crushes on guys, and suddenly as a girl. So he has to go through that while like trying to figure out how to love magic the way his sister always tried to get him to love magic. So that's kind of like more or less how the book is. It's like it's just survival. It's magical survival. Like that is the best way I could describe ROTC as a whole, is magical survival.
Question 2. What is your MC like?
So, as like following the trend of the other two books, I do have two dual first person point of views in the book. So the first book, Malediction, follows Scarlet and Eli. Book two followed Hunter and Evan, and book three, Remission, follows Hunter and Eli. So Hunter being Scarlet's twin brother, and Eli being Scarlet's best friend. They are sharing the limelight of being the main characters, and Eli doesn't share very well, but Hunter does, so that helps.
Nice. Yeah, I remember when I read it, Scarlet and Eli were my favorite characters.
Eli is my ultimate favorite character, but he's a pain in the butt to write. He's like the absolute bane of my existence, but I love that boy to pieces.
I feel that way about my MC sometimes, to be honest. Question 3. What are your other important characters like?
So, naturally, Scarlet does have to play a role in Remission. Eventually, towards like about the part where I'm at right now, which is writing, so about chapter 16, 17, Scarlet's point of view does get added into the book towards the last half of it, or the last quarter of it. So she becomes a main character, but towards the start of it, I guess a little spoiler, Scarlet's very pregnant. So towards the first half of her mission, Scarlet is heavily pregnant with triplets. And with that, she can't really do much magically because of the way her magical system is. It's heavily elemental, and Scarlet is a fire witch. So two of her babies are not fire witches, but one is. So if she were to do magic while pregnant, it could greatly harm those two little non-fire witches that are grown in her belly. So she basically, for the first half of the book, has to live the most normal, boring, bedridden human life to possible, and she is hating every second of it. Every second of it does she hate.
I
It
can
is
imagine because she
it,
is not the character to want to
no,
not know.
No, literally. So it's really hard for her, and I'm happy though that writing her this time around it has been a little bit easier. But like I know it's because she's so sad that she can't do anything. So I'm like, I'm sorry, I love you, but I'm very happy that you can't do anything because that means it's less stress on me.
Question 4. If your MC has a love interest, what is their dynamic like?
So Eli does not have a love interest in remission. He's mostly dealing with guilt of what he did, which I will go into a little bit later. Um, he doesn't have a love interest in this book, but he's getting his own prequel book in the future. So that is gonna be more of a love story for him and
Yay!
adjusting to, life again. So that's coming up, like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years that'll be a thing. um but he doesn't have one in remission, but Hunter is dating Sabrina, who was the biowaking girl from his book. Their relationship right now is long distance because she lives in upstate New York, but she's from Washington State, and then Hunter has since moved back to Washington State, his hometown. And their relationship is a little bit of controversial because he's 19, he just turned 19 in December, and then she's 17. She had turned 17 in December because their birthdays are a couple days apart. So there's that little bit of an age gap where his family's like, hey, don't do anything, and her family's like, hey, don't do anything. They're like, hey, if we were both 20 and like what 22 and 20, like it wouldn't be a big deal, and we're living on opposite sides of the country, but like, so there's that. But overall, they're for a long distance relationship and like essentially a teenage relationship. Their dynamic's pretty healthy. Like they talk about everything. They show interest in each other's. Hunter is very supportive of her educational goals because she's a science girl. So she's trying to get her university stuff in science and math. So he's very supportive of that. So I'd say that they have a very healthy communicative relationship.
Good. Um, yeah, I know when I first read it, I kind of wanted, because of Eli and Hunter's past, I was like, if they get reunited, I kind of hope something will go between them again. I don't know why, but
I've learned that they just exploring their characters and like getting to know them more. I've learned that they're a lot better as friends than anything else because Hunter has a lot of things that trigger Eli because of what's going on in Eli's past, and Eli does have a very deep, dark past. And there are things that Eli is just so loyal to Scarlet. Like Hunter likes to be the main focus in like relationships, and like in a way Eli will always come second to Hunter when it comes to Scarlet, or Hunter will always come second to Eli when it comes to Scarlet because he'll always put Scarlet first.
yeah,
And then there's other things that are being discussed in or being brought into the mix throughout the book 3 that would make Hunter and Eli's relationship a little bit difficult, which got to keep the secrets, but there are things in the works.
drama.
A little bit, just a tiny bit.
Question 5. Who, despite the love interest, is closest to your MC? What is their dynamic like?
So, trigger warning. I guess this is where I mentioned Eli committed suicide. Uh, the first, so he was 19, 18 when he did it. But the way that, the death works in my books, the other side is basically like a copy of the human world, except um, the spirits are called demons, and in order to come back up to be with the land, with being the land of the living is what the majority of people, the demons, call it on the other side. They have to be summoned, and then once you're summoned, you could move back and forth between living the living land of living and then the other side. So Hunter feels a lot of guilt, or Eli feels a lot of guilt for what he's done, and with that guilt, he keeps his distance from Scarlet and, his brothers that he was starting to grow a relationship with towards the end of book one, to trying to rebuild what had broken essentially. But because of, that guilt of, he took his own life. He took himself away from Scarlet, and them being platonic soulmates, that, it obviously had a very negative effect on her. And so he does not stay as connected to Scarlet in book three, but he does definitely stay connected to people in the family. So he stays in constant communication with a man called Silas Clark, who is actually Hunter's and Scarlett's grandfather, who had died a couple months before they were born. So he lives permanently on the other side. He's never been summoned. He does not want to be summoned. He has no interest in being in the land of the living. So he stays and living on the other side. And so Eli does form a close relationship with him. And then he also meets another friend. He meets a demon that becomes his friend called Bram. And he's actually mentioned throughout Malediction and Cascade, but you would never know because it's a little tiny, it's a little Easter egg kind
Huh.
of. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I know you read the book, but I'm not sure if you remember how they talked about the love story, the Romeo and Juliet type one, where they both them ended up dying. I'm not sure if you remember it. It was more earlier towards in book two.
Yeah.
So basically, Bram is the Romeo in that story. And
Huh.
in Remission, we actually kind of find out what exactly happened in that.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
so Eli forms a friendship with that character. And it kind of they become good friends. And then with Silas is a mentor of sorts to Eli, not only in the ways of demon, but like in magic and life and things like that. Because Eli never close to any of his grandfathers, so he didn't know. He never had that connection to them. And then with Hunter has a whole group of friends. Like he has a whole group of people that he leans on and he loves, and he relies on a lot. You have Evan, which is sorry, Evan, which is his platonic soulmate, and they're best friends. And he was a secondary MC in Cascade. Everly, which is the side character that came in a little bit later in book two. Ivan, who I'm sure you remember, Ivan was the secondary antagonist in Castigate and Evan's twin brother. They're actually very good friends. And then you have Mikey and Ryan, who are childhood friends of both the twins. So he leans on them regularly. And then Sabrina, but she was the love interest. So
Question 6. What's your world like? Is it similar to our world? Is it different? How so?
so I do write contemporary fantasy. Um I the majority of my books, the majority of my worlds, even the ones that I write under a different pen name, do consist in this little 13 county city county in Northwest Washington called Angels County. And it's fictional. It's whatever names and things that exist there that, I have no idea prior. I just, that's what popped into my brain. And so that's what I wrote. Um, I don't like to use real life places as inspiration. I kind of just let things come together in my head, and that's what I write. So it is similar to our world, but it's different from our world in terms of like we have different schools, different like coffee shops, different restaurants, sorry,
Fine.
different universities, hospitals, even their tech companies. Like we have Google and Apple. Their main tech company in their world is called Dot Industries. So it's like they have an entire different life in that thing. It's very complex and very like there's no reason for it, but it's there. So
Question 7. If you write fantasy, what's your magic system?
So, I do write the contemporary fantasy. It's modern day witches, for the most part. Um, the Petrov magic system, first and foremost, is inherently dark magic. So it runs off dark power. Petrova witches are inherently dark witches. Their magic runs off elemental and ancestral magic for the most part. And then blood magic used to be a big part of it. Until I don't know, somewhere around the 1800s, it kind of dropped off to like not being existent until Scarlet decided to bring it back. So now Scarlet is now incorporating blood magic into the majority of her things before, she got pregnant. But elements in the terms of like fire, water, air. The only extra one that they put is electricity. For some reason, I don't know why, but they're electric witches. Um, but mostly it centers around those core bits as elemental, ancestral, and then blood magic does come into the fold when you get into like the prequel and the sequel books. That's kind of becomes more of a norm again.
Nice. I always thought blood magic was an interesting thing. Like I've seen it on other things before, and it's not. I don't think it's used that often, but I always found it kind of intriguing. But I never really used it until my current series in book 2, and I finally kind of incorporated it a little bit. So I did always find it interesting, like an interesting concept.
So, for anybody who does know, I actually do practice real life magic, and blood magic is something that is used in real life witchcraft. But in terms of like in her world, blood magic does signify more darker magic. It does signify like making things stronger. And so when you use blood magic and real life magic, it kind of connects you physically. Like it connects you person as a witch to whatever the spell you're using your blood in. For her world, it's not like that. For her, it's like if she uses the blood magic, it just makes it stronger because it's adding her life essence to it, but it's not essentially binding her to the spell. So she's kind of making it in terms of like adding her strength to the spell or ritual or whatever she's doing. The only problem for Scarlet is a bleeder. So even a tiny paper cut on her finger could bleed for hours. So how she's managing to incorporate blood magic into her everyday thing is something I haven't figured out and that she's keeping close to her chest. She's not letting me in on that secret yet. But it's definitely something that she's making a point, be like, this is what I'm doing, and you better write about it. And I'm just okay, okay, like I'll do it. Just don't yell at me
Yeah,
anymore, okay?
yeah. When your characters want something in the story, they're gonna make you write it.
Yeah.
Question 8. Do you like to write major plot twists?
So I don't know if I do it very often. I one of those writers that I write based on my characters. I don't come up with any plots. I don't come up with any characters. They literally just kind of pop up into my head and they're like, "Hey, I'm so and so and this is what happened." And then I just kind of write down what they say happened and how they happened and who it happened with and this and that. Like for example, malediction has been it first popped into my brain back in 2015. So I was still in high school, I was still a kid, and Eli wasn't originally gonna exist when Scarlet was like first came into my head. Eli didn't exist, and neither did Hunter. Like not gonna lie, neither did Hunter. Neither did Eli and Hunter did not exist. And Scarlet was like, actually, I have a brother, and he's my twin brother. I was like, oh, okay, where is he? Oh, he ran away. Okay. And she's like, oh, this kid? Yeah, I know this kid. He's my best friend. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's how they came to be. It's like I just kind of write down what they tell me and how they tell me it and who's there and if this person's good, if this person's bad. So I write and then they tell me that stuff, I write it down. If and I tend to fill in the blanks, and if those blanks are like wrong with the information I put into them, they have no problem being like, hey, this is wrong. It needs to be changed. This is what happened. So then I get more information. And then, I kind of go back and forth like that. It's like I write it down. Nope, that's wrong. Go change it. Okay, let's change it. Oh, nope, that's wrong. Now you need to go change that. So I'm just like, okay. And that's how I write it. That's why it takes me like so long to edit the books, because it's like I have to make sure all the information is so cohesive. And
Yeah.
it's also like why it took me so long to find such a good editor, because I needed somebody to be like, stay with it. Like, I love my editor pieces, because without her, forget it. Forget it. You wouldn't have any of the books, because I'd be like, I'm not doing this.
Question 9. What tropes are in your WIP?
So I'm not big on tropes. Like, I definitely don't take note of what's there. Um, if they're there, then they are. Then I don't realize them until actually they're pointed out to me. So when I was looking at these questions, I had to go back and think. I was like, okay, what tropes are here? Um, so definitely chosen ones, Scarlet and Hunter. That has been a consistent trope within the other two books, and it remains to be a significant trope. Um, Another big trope is the secret child. Um, you have the teen pregnancy, which Scarlett's pregnant. Incarcerated parent, Travis is still in prison. Um, you have the revenge scheme type plots where they're just like, they're trying to go about all these ways to get their very significant revenge. And then that's pretty much it for off the top of my head, because I'm not well versed in tropes. Like, when I read, I only read like enemies to lovers or like Big Brother's best friend. So it's like I'm not well versed in tropes. So that
Well,
was definitely just like that was there.
what did you have the trope of? At least I think it's a trope. I might be wrong, but the best friend brother thing, because Scarlett ends up because she
Oh
kind of
yeah,
ends up with
yeah,
her best friend's brother.
yeah, yeah. Definitely have that one. Scarlett did end up with Ashton. They are still together in remission, but their relationship is very rocky. So
I
it
kind of
like
noticed that at the end of Castigate. That I mean, actually, I noticed it more at the end of Malediction. Like, I thought they were cute at first. They still like my favorite relationship in book one was obviously Scarlett and Eli. Like, I absolutely love their friendship, and I love how because I always felt like a lot of books would like the romance would be the main relationship, and I love it when it's not. So that's one thing I loved about your book, because that's one thing I like to write myself. Like, even if there is romance, like usually the romance is not the main thing. It's usually a friendship or a family sort of thing, and I absolutely love that Scarlett and Eli had the main relationship despite Scarlett having a romantic partner. um, so I really appreciate that, because I feel like that's just something we do not see enough, especially in fantasy. And I was just so happy that I was able to see that.
like that's really important to me. Is I'm not a romantic person.
Neither
Um,
am I.
I'm not a romantic person. I barely started reading romance maybe late last year, mid last year. So before that, I was just kind of reading like whatever adventure story I found or whatever. So romance is not a big thing for me, and it's especially not big when I write. It's like it's there, and I like that it's there because I think it's cute, but it's definitely not gonna distract from like the actual what's going on, because my characters are very heavily realistic. They all have a lot of issues, they all have trauma, they all have mental illnesses, they have their own quirks and things, and likes and dislikes, and I like to give them, or they're very real people, they're very much real people. And so um naturally in real life, romance is not everything. Like we just said, we're not romantic people. Romance is not big for us. So it's like we have other stuff going on, we have life and work and school, and there's other things that are more important than romance. And I think books should be that. It's like if you're writing something that's not romance genre,
Yeah.
so sorry. It's like if you're writing something that's not a romance genre, I still think that there should be something other than romance in that book. Like, so I don't think romance should be that big, massive plot that it is. And I think that's what the problem
100%.
is. Yeah, it's like I have such a big problem with like a lot of modern day like traditional published fantasy books. It's like all the reviews are, oh my gosh, the relationship here, the relationship this, the relationship that. I'm like, I want to find out why they're fighting, and I want to know like what's going on in their brains. I want to know like A, B, and C. Like I don't want just romance in it. I don't. If I'm reading a fantasy, I want the other stuff. And I think
Yeah,
that's for me was like the most important thing. And like in all my fantasy books, because I actually have another fantasy project that's huge and that's in the works and stuff. And I'm like, their relationship, it means it's there, but that cannot be the only thing that's there. Like it cannot be the sole focus. I'm very much like it
yeah.
cannot be the sole focus of it.
Yes, thank you. I feel like it's very hard to find people like that, but I am 110% like that. I mean, like in my current book, it can be portion like there's several portions, pretty big portions where the MC and their love interest do not have a one-on-one scene together because like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much going on that they're whatever they have going on because not even they know yet. It's
Yeah.
not important, you know. And I know this one person who likes my books was like, her favorite relationship isn't even the romantic relationships, and it's like because the romantic relationships are not even the most important ones in life most of the time. You know, I mean, like friendships and family, those are just as important, if not more important. And I feel like we just do not see that enough.
I agree. I definitely agree. Like I solely only read indie books now because indies kind of have more of a greater grasp on hey, romance is not the only thing that's marketable. So I think indie reads like tell it best because it's like indies know. Like they know that their books aren't technically traditionally marketable. So they're just like, I'm gonna do it my way and people are gonna love it, people are gonna hate it, but it's there. And I think that's amazing. I love indie writers. I love indie authors.
Yeah, me too. I'm trying to read more indie books. Once I have money to buy more, but I have more that I plan to read soon. So yeah, I love indie books. They're so good and so underrated.
They really are.
Because people's like, if it's indie, then it can't be that good. They couldn't get traditionally published. It's not that we couldn't. For a lot of people, it's that we chose not to.
I won't even get started on this topic because it makes me so mad. I am not traditional published because I don't want to be.
Same.
I had no desire to go through the trenches. I had no desire to do the letters or the Curie letters or have no desire to like find the comps. I have no desire for any of that. I'm not traditional published because I don't want to be traditionally published. There was nothing
Yes.
to say about my talent or my writing ability. I just didn't want it, so I didn't try for it. That's just what it is. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, you're not." No, that's not it. Please, just sit down, and shut up. That's always. I'm like, sit down and shut up.
On the next question, what was the next question? Our last question was tropes, right? So, yeah, because we were talking about tropes. That's how
Yeah,
this whole discussion started. Uh,
that's the thing.
uh, question 10 is what themes are in your WIP?
So I don't actually know this one either because I don't pay attention to things. Like I said, I just write what they taught me to write. I know for found family, soulmates, like so we have the platonic and the romantic soulmates, so soul family, survival, surviving against all odds. And personal growth is a big one because you have Scarlet growing into in remission at least. Scarlet growing into, she's no longer just Scarlet, she's no longer just responsible for Scarlet. Now she's responsible for babies. And, she's technically a wife. And she's also a sister. She is a cousin. And she's a friend. So she's trying to grow into all those different titles. You have Hunter, who's still trying to grow into his magical abilities. Because technically, right now, he's the equivalent of a baby witch. Essentially, he's a toddler. Like, his skill level is like that of what a toddler would be able to do magically because he just didn't learn when he was supposed to or when she tried to get him to learn. Yeah, personal growth for Eli because he's going through that guilt and those processes of like, hey, I did this, I really hurt the people I love, like I'm trying to fix it but I don't know how. And so that's what that is. But other than that, like I think those are the important ones of the book, essentially is growth, survival, and found family.
Nice. Question 11. What was your inspiration for your WIP?
So my inspiration is finishing the series. Literally, that is my entire goal is just to finish the ROTC trilogy. I think it's because I don't write standalones. I only write series. I only write series.
Same.
So, if I'm thinking of like if I'm able to finish this series, it'll motivate me to finish all my other series. So I'm hoping that I could use finishing this one as a motivation for writing in the future and like finishing off all the other ones I have because I have so many. I have so many.
Same. I definitely feel that. Question 12. 12. Are you a plotter, pantser, or somewhere in between? If your WIP is a part of a series, how much do you have mapped out for it?
So I'm a planner. Like I said, I write according to what they tell me. I take notes for chapters. I write down, the main bits inside of them. Any smaller details, like if they give me one, then I write them down. But if not, I go through the chapter and I make sure that those big things are there, and anything else that comes from whatever they're telling me during the chapter. Like Hunter tends to like add more to his chapters than Eli does. He like kind of like reserved about it. So it depending on which character I'm working with is how the chapter will go, basically. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I get that. Dual POV is kind of interesting. Like, I've dabbled in it, but none of my published works are dual POV because I write third person omniscient. So it's like I can just get into every character's head at different points, and I don't need a certain POV. Just it's all just there, like a mixture. But
Yeah,
I
so
know.
I've
Oh, sorry. Well,
go ahead.
I was just saying my next series is gonna be first person but dual POV, so it's gonna be a little bit different, and I'm a little scared. I have started it, so I have already dabbled in it a bit, but I am a little nervous because this will be my first time actually truly doing it. So
Um, I like it. I'm not a third person writer. I've never have been. I have tried several times, and it never turned out great because if I give my characters room to all talk at once, every single character in my head will talk at once. So even if I'm not working like obviously I have the witch crew, which is what I call ROTC. Um I do have another set of characters that is they're werewolves essentially. It's like a werewolf series, and then I have another set that's for my princess wit, which is what I'm calling it. If I tell them, hey, just let me know what's going on, literally all of them, all the characters will start talking at once and then forget it. It's over. I'm just like, I'm done. Bye guys. Like I have to like narrow things down. I'm like, okay, you speak now. And then someone else will speak later. But right now, for you, can I just get you to tell me what's going on? Thank you.
yeah, I get that. I just feel like for me it's I've always been better at like third person omniscient because I like to be able to dip into every character's head and not just the main character. I mean, still the main character will be the main focus and you will be in their head more than the other characters, but I like to get in the other character's head every so often as well. So
Definitely, I do like that. Like I like reading third person, but for writing it, it's too much for me. I cannot like I wouldn't be able to finish anything if I just wrote third person.
well, not all third persons like that either. There's limited and omniscient. So
hmm
it's just about which kind of third person you like or stuff.
I've tried third person limited because I thought it would be easier because limited, and
Still a
it
mess.
just it was still a mess. It's like I said, okay, you two talk right now, and then someone else will talk later, and they're like, no, no, no. I'm just like,
Okay.
okay, that's fine. It's fine. I'll just, just one of you, please. Can just one of you talk? Thanks.
Question 13. Who's your favorite character to write in your WIP? If it's your MC, then who is the second?
So, my favorite character across all books remains to be Eli. Eli is my absolute favorite character. I love him to pieces, but I hate to write him. I absolutely detest it. Like, he is an absolute pain in my ass. Like, he drives me insane. But with that said, I love writing it when he is interacting with someone else. So his chapters where he's like interacting with the secret child or Bram and Shadow. I don't know if you remember Shadow from Malediction. So and he's interacting with like Travis or Silas. It's like when he's interacting with other people, I love him to pieces. Those chapters are my favorite to write, and those scenes are my favorite to write because I like the way he interacts with them and like the way he changes when it comes to interacting with them. Um, but other than that, I'm just like, you're a pain in my butt. And he's just like, I know, but you're gonna deal with it. And I'm just like, yeah, yeah.
Question 14. What's the dynamic like between your MC and villain? If it's not fantasy, then the main character towards your MC.
So main character and villain. So Thomas. Thomas is my main antagonist. Um, he is the main big bad throughout the entire series. Um, Obviously, with Eli, it's different because technically Eli is a relative of his. So Thomas feels like an like some sort of connection to Eli because technically they are kin. They're related. They're distant relations and not even through the same bloodline because Thomas died when he was 17, 18 years old. And he didn't have no children. But like they're still kin in his eyes. So he tends to target Eli more, especially since he's aware of Eli's mental health issues and he tries to use that stuff against him. With Hunter, Hunter is obviously part of the chosen one trope. Thomas is trying to manipulate Hunter, and even though Hunter has proven time and time and time again that he's not to be manipulated, Thomas keeps trying. And eventually, Thomas gets to the point where I'm just done with you. And then he starts to attack the people that are closest to Hunter. So Scarlet, Sabrina, his friends, that's becomes target. That's where we're at this point. Is Thomas is like, I can't get to Hunter. He's like he doesn't give a shit about himself essentially. And so he's trying to get to him other ways. So it's all based on revenge and it's all like, hey, you're gonna do what I say, and the boys are just like, nah, we're not gonna do anything you say.
Question 15. Without being too spoilery, I can't speak. What was your favorite scene to write in your WIP so far?
So so far, let's see. In remission so far, I definitely like I just wrote a scene with maybe a couple chapters ago with Eli and Ashton. And, Scarlett was crying. She was trying to sleep but she can't because she is heavily pregnant. She can't get comfortable and, everything's just kind of weighing on her. And Eli, he hasn't seen her. He keeps distance from her. He doesn't really interact with her. He's always watching her to make sure she's good. And, if she needs stuff, like then he's there and like he's dropping stuff off for her, but he's not actually interacting with her. So basically in the scene, Eli goes to Scarlet and they like cuddle essentially like they used to in Malediction because they love each other. But so once like Scarlet is able to like cuddle up to Eli, like she's able to fall asleep essentially, and it's just a very sweet moment between them. But at the same time, a little bit later, not Thomas, Ashton, Ashton comes into the room, and this is the first time that Eli has had any interaction with Ashton either, which is his brother, and then you know Eli's pissed. He is in no simple terms. He is furious at the way that Ashton has been treating Scarlet and, neglecting her pregnancy. And, oh, I guess that spoils. He's not a very good husband, okay? But Eli's mad. And so he's basically just giving Ashton, like, all the stress because of it. And, he's very, I'm not sure how much you cuss on your channel, but he's trying to give him hell in, like, the quietest way possible because Scarlett is still sleeping. So it's like he's mad and he's like so mad and he's like yelling at his brother, but at the same time he's trying to be considerate of his sleeping best friend who just wants to sleep, She just wants her best friend and she wants to sleep and that's all she wants. So it's very sweet and like angry at the same time, and I love it to pieces because it just pretty much encompasses Eli's personality. He's very sweet, but he's a very angry boy.
That sounds very sweet. I can't wait for that scene. I know that one thing I may or may not have told you this, but in Malediction, which is my favorite of the two books so far, I did love Cascade, but I did like Malediction a little bit more, not gonna lie. But maybe it's because Scarlet and Eli are my favorite characters and they were hardly in the second book. But
Yeah.
uh my favorite scenes were when either Scarlet went off on either her family or the entire town and tried to embarrass her uncle in front of the town, or the scenes when Eli would go off on his family for the help they put him through. And hell is really the only bad word I say on my channel, just to let you know. But and I lost my train of thought. But those were basically my favorite scenes. Like every time those scenes came out, I was like cheering for them, like let's go. But one thing that I absolutely loved, because it made it a little bit more realistic, because I hate when characters that are terrible to characters, even if they are trying to be better, where it's just like they forgive them too easily. And I really like that, even though they are starting to be on good terms at the end of book one, there's still a lot that
Needs to be
they
repaired.
make amends for. It's a lot that needs to be
Yeah.
repaired. Eli's not fully forgiven them yet because they haven't fully earned it yet, because what they did was not okay, and he's not afraid to make them know that because he still has a lot of trauma from them. And I really like that you did that, because I feel like that is just something we do not see enough. Like, it's just so many, like, they're family, so you have to forgive them. No. Family, no. Just because they're family does not mean they have the right to treat you like that. And I just really like
Exactly.
that you had that.
Exactly. That is big in not only like not in my books, but it's like my characters. They're very much, they love their family to pieces. Don't get me wrong. They will go to bat for their families. But just because they're family does not mean that you get away with things. Like I just finished a scene between Scarlett and Travis, which is her father. um, that scene did not go very good and probably didn't go according to how Travis had planned it, because Scarlett has always been very loving and caring and respectful to her father because she's a daddy's girl at her core. And I'm so sorry. um so she's a daddy's girl at her core. She's never been disrespectful to him. And things have happened in the over the course of a year and a half or so, and he is not happy about it and she's not happy about it, but she's also not happy about the way that her dad is treating her, saying the things. And she was like, Dad, I love you and I miss you and I always love you and I'll always miss you, but no. And so she just hangs up on him. And it's like,
Oh.
she's cut up about it. Like she feels horrible. Like she's so sad, and obviously being pregnant, like all the emotions are enhanced, but it's like she's like, she didn't know what else to do. Like he was making her feel worse, and it's like there was only so much she could do to preserve her mental health and then the health of her babies, essentially, because her emotions are directly tied to her magic, and her magic gets triggered, then it's like she gets too hot, and then it becomes, it's like she could easily fry two of her babies, So she's like, she had to choose herself over being reprimanded by her father. And it's like, yes, he has all the liberties to be upset with her, but at the same time, she's an adult too. Essentially, she's 19 years old, and she's a wife and she's pregnant, and she's handling herself as best as she can. But it's like she doesn't need to be mistreated or talked down to in any way, say any sort of way, because she's not a child anymore. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is like when he left their family, like she was 13. She was a child. She was still a baby. And
Yeah.
it's like now she's not a baby anymore. So it's like she had to like put her foot down, and it's just like, I'm very proud of you. I'm sorry you're hurting, but I'm very proud of you for doing that because you need that, you know?
Yeah. I really like that. Question 16. If you're writing a series, do you like ending on cliffhangers? Do you plan to end on a cliffhanger in your current WP? I'm guessing no to the second one since it is the final book.
Yeah, so so you read both books.
Yes, I have.
Both books do end in cliffhangers, and
Okay, good.
you know, I don't think they're that bad to read though, because book you could easily read book one and then immediately jump into book two if you wanted to, so you don't have to wait for that
Which
cliffhanger.
is what I did because I got both books for.
Yeah,
Because you
so
said actually.
yeah, I sent you both books, so I was like, if you want to read, you don't have to worry about the cliffhanger. Um, but Remission does not end in cliffhanger as far as I know. It's very final, and it's very like, as of right now, from what I plotted, it is very like, okay, this is what happens. So obviously I haven't written the ending yet, so it could very well change. I'm hoping it doesn't. Cross my fingers, because I don't want to have to like do any extra to it. But it is at right now. It is, flat. I'm like, no more. Thanks.
Question 17. What's a scene you want to write in your WIP that you're excited for that you haven't gone to yet?
So Travis does get out of prison in book three, even though he really shouldn't. Spoiler. I'm very excited for that scene. I won't say specifically what's in it or why I'm excited for it, but he does get out, and I'm so like ready to write it, but I can't. I'm not one of those that could write out of order. So
Me
I have
too.
to wait until I get to that part in order to write it. I'm just like, ah.
Question that was 17. So 18. What's your favorite thing to write about? A certain type of scene, like fight scenes or romantic scenes, and so on.
So my favorite scenes to write are definitely like the more heartfelt scenes, like not necessarily romance, but I like the one to one, like the emotion sharing. I like the cute scenes where it's like, hey, this was going on, I still love you, things like that. I definitely like scenes between like Eli and when he talks to his friends, because he becomes like becomes a very marshmallowy when he talks to his friends, and the secret child there's that. So it's like I definitely like the scenes that are a bit more heartfelt, and like you can feel the emotion between the characters. Second favorite is definitely the more emotional scenes where it's like you want them to cry, and I'm like, not because it's like somebody died or anything. It's just because you want them to be able to, you want your readers to be able to feel what the characters are feeling. So I like being able to express that. And it's usually makes me cry in the process, which kind of sucks. But also, it's like, I think it shows like, hey, you're kind of doing it right if you're able to cry by yourself. But at the same time, I'm just like, am I crying because it's sad? And I'm reading it sad, or am I crying because my character is sad and crying? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna go for the second one.
Question 19. What do you love most about your WIP and the series overall?
So, what do I love most about my series? Okay, so I definitely love my characters. Obviously, I've kind of spent the majority of this interview talking about them, but I love how realistic and crafted my characters are. Like, to me, they're real people. To me, I see them as real people. I see them in my head. Like, I
Me too.
interacting with them. Like, I guess you could say they're more imaginary friends, which I guess sounds ridiculous because I'm 25 years old. I shouldn't have imaginary friends anymore. But I definitely see them more as like, imaginary friends. It's like they're very much real. They're very lifelike. They're very like, you know, um, so I definitely love my characters. They are the heart and soul of every single thing I write. Those characters in whatever series, like whatever book you're reading, are the soul of the thing. So it's like for me, I guess you could. This is gonna sound really weird, but it's like if you could not like the plot of my book, but love my characters, every single one of them, I would happily accept that as a great compliment. So, recently I actually lent a book to one of my coworkers, lent Malediction to one of my coworkers for her to read, but she only got past like the first chapter before she had to return the book because she said she had things to do. She wasn't gonna have time to read it. And I'm very forgetful, so I would have forget she had it to begin with. So she was like, the first thing she said, she's like, I love your characters and the way that they're written because everyone sounds so different and they sound so unique and individual. And I'm like that is the greatest compliment you could give me because if my characters are like they're everything to me. So that is definitely what I love most about not only my series but like my whip remission, everything like that's just what it is. It's like my characters are my life.
I get that. I mean, I feel like characters. I know this was that whole thing like, do you prefer plot driven or character driven? For me, I feel like I like it in between. Like I like it when there's a good plot because there's I feel like there needs to be something that the characters are doing, but at the same time, I find it hard to read a book or series or whatever if I am not a fan of the characters because then even if I like the plot, it's like why am I following these characters when I want to strangle them?
That's exactly how I feel. So I read, obviously, but if I don't like the main character or I cannot find a character to love within the first 10 to 20 pages of that book, I DNF it. Because characters are not only important to me when in terms of writing, but in terms of reading. So if I cannot find a character to grasp onto, then the story, no matter how good the plot is, it doesn't matter because I won't enjoy it.
Yeah,
So, so if the characters don't like have something that's redeeming or fun or something about them that makes me love them, then forget it. Like there's no way I could possibly enjoy the book, which unfortunately is like, mm, it's like I'm not saying anything that your book is bad or that the plot is bad because to be fair, I'm not really reading for your plot. I'm reading because I need to find a character to love. After I find that character that I love, then I could find be like, oh yeah, this plot is awesome. You know, this is cool. Like I love following this character. But it's like I've read books before where I've found love with the side character, and like the rest of the book, like the plot was fine, but because the plot followed the main characters and the main character was lackluster, I was just like, I guess. Like I continued to read the book because I liked that secondary character, but I didn't enjoy it because I didn't like the main character. But it had nothing to do with the plot or the way the book was written. It was just because I didn't like it. Like there was nothing likable or like there was no sustenance to like that main character, and I'm just like, there's no point to it. And I'm very much just like that type of person. Like I feel horrible for saying that because I know some people like put so much work and time and energy into their plots. But I'm like, if your characters aren't good or aren't likable or there's not something that you could really grab onto, then it's like, I'm sorry, but your book is lacking. And that should have probably been caught at some point in between editing and proofreading that, your character is not your main characters aren't as compelling as you want them to be.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I feel like the plot has to be good too. Like for me, it's like half and half. Like the plot has to be good enough to for I really want to know what's gonna happen and stuff. I need to like this world too, but I also really need to enjoy at least one of the main characters that I'm following. Because even if I love the side characters, like you said, it's the main character we're following, and the side character's not always there, you know. And
Yeah.
I know there's this one trilogy I read, and it's like, and the plot was good, but uh, the three major characters, including the main character, I did not like. I decided to keep reading, hoping I would like them, but if I did not like them by the end of the book, I would not continue the series. By the end of the book, two of the characters I ended up loving, thankfully. But then in the sequel book, it ended up following the character that I didn't grow to like. I was like, this is awful.
It sucks. It really does suck. And then
Yeah.
it's like, I think if your characters are good enough though, that they have like you could have a subpar plot, but if your characters are good enough, I think that if and you're able to express them and write them the way that they're portraying themselves to you, or that you've created, depending on how you write. I think they're able to carry a subpar plot, like just as far as a really good plot versus like a really good plot and like no suspect characters. Like so, I think it's kind of one of those things that it's really controversial or like a debatable topic in the writing
Yeah.
community because it's like, do you want a really good plot and sucky characters, or do you want really good characters and like a kind of okay plot? Like that's kind of what it is. And it's like, oh well, I'm always gonna go for those really good characters. I was like, give me a really good character and no plot, and I'll be good. I'll be chill. But like, dude, give me like a really good plot and like no character, and like, nah, I'm good. Thanks, bye.
The last question, question 20. What are you most excited for readers to read once it's published?
So, sorry. Obviously, Remission it will not be published until next year. I do have two books coming out under a different pen name this year. I'm just not sure what time they are or like what date they are. That's to be determined. But so Mission, I'm really excited for people to see how everything ties together and like it, finishes everything off and how people feel about the little Easter eggs I put into them because those are definitely little things that are like, hey, like what is that and why is it there? And like what am I like I need to find out what that is. Like that's kind of what I want them to think about. It's like, hey, I need to know what that means in order to like get people kind of hyped up. But I'm really just excited about people like having the entire series. Like I want you to know how it ends. I want you to know how things go between each of the characters. I want you to see how Hunter's relationship, comes back together. Obviously being a runaway for so long, with like how his relationship with like his mom comes back, and his cousin, which is Lily, obviously from Malediction, he hasn't even met her in before cast before Remission, so he's just getting to know her. So it's like I want people to see and kind of fall in love with the friendships and the relationships that are forming within the worlds, and see how they're tackling these new problems in life and different stages of life, because the twins are 19, they're going to be 20. It's like that's you're totally leaving your teens at that point. You're not a teenager anymore. You're becoming a true young adult, and so I want them to see how they navigate not only human things, as in like turning, leaving your teens behind, but also the magical things that are happening within their world and how they're processing them, and then having to settle in after being gone for so long, and being without their dad and their mom for so long. A little spoiler, their grandmother dies, their paternal grandmother dies in Remission, so that's a little spoiler. But so it's like they're adjusting to life without her, and she has been a constant in their life since they were born. So it's like there's a lot of things that they're having to come to terms with. And then obviously Eli is going through a lot of stuff. He's still processing things that happened when he first came out of the closet. And so I'm just kind of excited for people to see like the different connections and relationships that are happening, and trying to see like how everybody's grown from their respective books, like Eli, Scarlet, the Hutton boys, and then obviously Evan and Hunter and Ivan. I want everyone to see how they have progressed, basically. Like I want them to see that personal growth. That's really important to me.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. I know I'm excited for it whenever it comes out. So definitely, if I have the money once it comes out, I will be one of your first buyers.
I will send you the book. I told you, I
Oh,
will send you the book as soon as it's out. You will be the first one to receive it. Like,
you're
I
so sweet.
absolutely, I absolutely love and adore just how much you support not only me but the entire writing community, like the indie community. It's like you don't understand like how much it means to the majority of us, that a lot of people think that we're lesser than because of the fact that we choose to self publish or we choose to do indie press and things like that. It's like we're not lesser than, our stories are not lesser than. And to have somebody constantly be supportive and loving and screaming about our books, it is so much. Like it is like it makes us all like jittery and happy inside. And I know for me, like hearing how much you love like my books, and like obviously talking to my best friend, which is Celeste, like she told me, she's like, oh yeah, I'm like, we're screaming of me and Johara are screaming about your books together. And I'm like, so it's like it makes me so happy, and I'm sure it makes a lot of other people happy. So, we really appreciate you probably doing all these things too, because it's like you don't have to, but you're choosing to, and that's really great. That's really like it makes us so happy.
I'm glad. I do really want to, help the indie community and the friends I've made. I kind of consider you one of my, online friends. Uh, and I know that every so often I will be like, here's a bunch of indie authors. You should check out their books because they're amazing. I do that every so often. But I was looking for a new way to try to support indie authors, and I was like, well, what if I did like indie author interviews? And I tweeted about it. I was like, what if I did this? And I was surprised that there were several people that actually were interested. And I was like, maybe I should actually do this. This sounds like
You
a
would be
great
so
idea.
surprised. You would be so surprised. It's like we're constantly looking for ways. Obviously, you yourself as an indie author probably know how hard it is to get your stuff out there. But it's like we're all looking for ways to get our stuff out there and read by others. And it's like we're looking for any sort of exposure we could get in these interviews. They could really help a lot of people. Like I said, I'm only like, if this gets me one read, I would be like, or one buy, like I'd be so jazzed. I'd be like, but it's
Well, I
like
hope it
it
does because you
helps.
deserve it.
Oh, thank you.
And if you in the future, like with one of your other books or series, if you ever want to get some more exposure on them, you can just hit me up and I can set you for another date if you ever want to come back.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So yeah, this has been really nice. I'm so happy you were able to join me today.
Totally, me
And for
too.
anyone new, uh, for anyone new in the comments or anyone watching, I do have Katerina's Amazon author page in the description, so you can just easy click it and be brought to her books if you are interested in buying. I definitely highly recommend it. At least put it on your TBR if you do not have the money right now, because we understand money difficulties. But I do highly recommend checking it out because, like I said, I think you're the only one that I've actually read the books before the author interview. I know that I have a couple on my TBR, and I even owned one, and then another one was sent to me as a thank you for the interview and an art copy, which I plan to read next month. So it's like I'm going to read them, I just haven't yet. So yours the only one I actually have read before the interview. So I can tell you firsthand how amazing your series is, and I definitely highly recommend checking it out because it became a fast favorite of mine. I fell in love with it pretty quickly after starting it. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you again for joining me. I hope you had a nice time and was able to chat about your books.
I did. I was really nervous, but I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad.
Yeah. So, like I said, you can always hit me up if you want to come back for an encore. I would be more than happy to have you. Um, so, thank you everyone in the comments who have joined. I think that is it for today, unless you have anything else you want to say.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so that is it. Thank you for joining. And if you want to be able to stay on point with these author interviews and all my other videos I post, then subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.